That's why I'm saying you have to make sure you say it the right way, because people will say, well, all I have to do is ask and I shall receive. Well, I want to win the lottery.
Oh,
It
they
don't work that way.
It doesn't. That's not what he meant. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not what Jesus meant.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
My friend Heidi, who's the one I talked to you about, who's wanting to get the oxy. So she's a fundamentalist Christian. She's such a gorgeous girl. But she's interpreted, I think it was James that said this, you have not because you ask not.
Yeah, well.
So she asks for everything. So she said to me a couple of weeks ago, can you send me some figgies? And I can't get into the story because that would betray her, but her husband is being mean on giving her figgies. So I had this
I understand. You don't have to. I had to do the same with my sister. She wanted me to send her wine because of all the pain she was in. Her husband.
And did you?
I did.
You did. Yeah,
until we got caught. I was sending it through FedEx, and I sent her 3 bottles, and apparently I didn't make it. She got the first 5 sets that I sent through to her, but the 6th one didn't make it, and we haven't tried back again since because it's illegal to do that. So
well, also when there's a barrier, that barrier should tell you something. Maybe that time has outlived its usefulness,
and that's a good possibility too.
Yeah. The barrier has stopped. So Smokey's brother, she lived, Smokey's my best friend that died last year. I was supplying grass to him, and he would send me the cash and I would send him an ounce, and he he was doing it in the 60s.
Right.
But it allowed him to process life in a different way.
Yes.
And I was quite happy to do that. But then I thought, okay, how are you going to do this? So I put a baseball cap and dark glasses on. I never parked it in the parking lot. And you don't have to fill out what's in it because it was only going to Texas. But I thought, I'm being filmed right here. I'm just being absolutely filmed, and someone could see this, and I mean, they could see my car. So what I decided to, I weighed an ounce, and then I bought like another 50% more in postage stamps and just stuffed it in the mailbox.
Right.
So I'd overpaid it, and no one ever saw me do it.
Right.
And I did that as an act of mercy for him because he didn't know where to get it. He's in his 70s.
Yes.
And
I've done the same. I've done similar for other people also. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. You're breaching all laws. But I realized that I wasn't going to get caught because I realized I had to be prudent about it. But I realized this is what he needed. And the law said in Texas that he wouldn't have known where to get it. And I was very happy. So I'm a bit of an anti-hero. I don't respect authority to some degree because I will act independently of it if I need to, in which case I needed to with him.
Right.
He wasn't going to be able to get this and I could get it for him. He sent me the money and we were good.
And it worked, yeah. And my sister did the same thing. She sent me the money, and we did it as long as we could.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is all being recorded, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But the good news is that I have control of the recording, so I can get rid of it.
Delete that part.
That's not a problem. All right, I don't want to cut our conversation short, but it looks like my phone's about to die.
That's very nice. It's 2:11.
And we have 2 hours and 8 minutes of recording.
No, hang on. So what? It's 1:47, but I've been on the phone with you for 2 hours and 11 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, lovely talking to you, Frank. I hope we got some material and we're on the same page. I'm going to be recording the TikToks this week and just check in if you need to, and I'll get the website's already being done, so I'll give you the credentials so you can go in and have a look at it.
Yeah, I'm still having a problem with the my YouTube thing, trying to get into the YouTube thing.
What, for Tiri Talk?
Yeah.
Yeah, you won't be able to get in yet, so I have to go.
Oh, well, no, I mean, I'm having problems just even getting into my own YouTube thing. I don't mean my YouTube, but the Gmail. I don't know. I don't have I have now virtualvoicepro@gmail.com, but I've never used the email, so I don't even know how to get to it.
Well, you have to download a YouTube video. What happens when you get locked out your own email account? How do I get back in?
Yeah, something like that, because I have no clue. I've tried changing the name and everything, and I did that, and they said, you got to wait 2 days before we can make sure.
What happened to me. I had to wait 7 days. I mean, their verification processes are really freaking stringent right now.
Well, then I
Yeah.
don't feel so bad now that I had to wait that long.
Well,
But
it's happened to
but
me
they
because
sent it.
I couldn't get to Tiri Talk. I mean, Dan, who's working for me, he's going to be doing the TikTok videos. He's got to go online with me. They'll send me a password and he'll try and get back in. But they have told you that if they're waiting for 7 days and then you've got to try again. So I guess they've been experiencing a lot of hacking. Because why
Ah.
would they? They've really upped. I mean, this is not a easy process anymore.
Well, when one of the videos that I watched yesterday stated something about YouTube being very closely on top of people with copyright infringement type things, that they're
Right.
literally exactly on top of the whole thing. So that could be a possibility. I
We'll
mean,
see.
with what you're saying about the hacking thing, so
Hmm.
it could all be a part of it. But I still have yet to figure out, like I said, even to get to my thing, because they're supposed to send a password to my YouTube thing. I mean, my virtual voice Gmail thing, but I can't get into the Gmail thing to get the password. So
Sounds like you got some work to do, honey.
yeah. It's not like I haven't had enough as it is
I
already, but
know.
now I got to figure out how to get into my own stupid YouTube channel.
Of all the things you've done, this should be. That's funny.
Yeah, it really. I mean, it should have been the simplest one, and it's like,
Quite.
you know. But it all makes it interesting. There's no doubt about it. And the good news is once you learn what you're doing, then you know. So
Well, that was like flying a plane for me. This was really intimidating right at the beginning. And then 50 hours into it, I was doing spins in the Everglades. So
yeah, right, exactly. It's like it's like riding a bike. I've done this, no problem.
yes, you bit of repetitiveness, and it sinks in. And that it depends on IQ. Your ability to retain information is a component of IQ.
Yes,
And that's interesting, isn't it, in itself? But you have to retain information. Everything has to flow, but it's just repetition. That's how I taught my children. Just repeat it over and over again. I'd point to Charlie and I would say shoe, and then he would look at it and point, and I would say to him, you said, he goes shoo, and that was his first word. So everything I taught him was, you have to repeat it after me,
yes,
and you're going to repeat it until you say it in a way that's recognizable. So it's just the ability to retain information and
yes,
just repetitiveness, isn't it? It's
a
just
bit
over and
so.
over. I hope so.
Yeah, you and me both, really.
I was young when I learned to fly a plane. I wonder if I could do it now.
I don't see why you shouldn't be able to.
I'll take you up. We'll do a cruise over the Everglades.
I'll
We'll
let you
record a show
I'll let
from
you
up
go
there.
first, and then I'll go second.
See
Make
if I
sure you
come
still
back.
remember how to do it. But
All
yeah,
right, Frank.
I would love to fly out of Piper Airport. You know that I actually have pictures of the Pink Floyd blimp there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when they did their '94 World Tour, I think it was the Division Bell. They had a blimp, and it was parked at North Perry Airport.
Wow.
And I didn't know that I could get in because a friend of mine got in, and he went in, and he actually even talked to the pilots and stuff.
Right.
It's like, oh man, I wish I would have known that. I would have gone up there and talked
You'd
with
have
the
gone
guys.
in, yeah.
No, I wouldn't have only gone in. I would have had them take me up. I would have figured out a way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, because that's
How
your
else
bit of
could
a
I
dare devil.
say? I mean, I've got David Gilmour's autograph. I've got pictures with him, not with him specifically, but I'm as huge a Floyd fan as I am. I guarantee I would have figured out a way to get in the air with that thing.
I remember having a debate with a neighbour of Becky, who was Becky. I went to live with Becky. You know about Becky.
Rebecca.
And we were discussing Pink Floyd, and he said, so who's more fundamental to the band, Roger Waters or David Gilmour? And I thought, that's a hell of a fucking question, right?
That is a
And
hell of a
then
question.
and then I'm thinking, it's Dave Gilmour to me because his voice is the front man.
Yes.
It has to be him, because without him you wouldn't have the sound and the voice that you recognize as the song.
That is
It doesn't
correct.
matter who wrote it.
That's
It doesn't
correct.
matter who wrote it. It doesn't matter who promoted the band. In technicalities, it's Roger Waters' band. I mean, it's totally his.
Yes, in that aspect, but it is David's what David brings, in my opinion, not only his voice, but with the music that he plays, you it's like an experience of floating along with the music.
Well, Gilmour was the one that was really interested in the synthesizer.
Yes.
Waters still wanted to use instruments, and Gilmour's like, no, baby, we got some
Well,
synthesizers.
they're also the ones, believe it or not, the reason why you have 5.1 surround sound on your TV now was because of Pink Floyd.
That interesting. Wow,
Yeah, they took because Gilmour wanted to make the sound come from behind you. That's where quadraphonic sound came from, was the ideas of what he wanted to be able to produce and make happen.
An echo.
And so therefore, no, not an echo. He didn't want the echo. He wanted you to
He
hear
wanted
his
the proximity
voice.
for you hearing it behind your right ear.
Yes, you are experiencing it like you're right in the middle of it. You know, you're sitting in the middle of the Coliseum.
It was very funny. So when I was this was in Dorking, and this was when my mum was married to the farmer. After her divorce from Victor, he had this beautiful dairy farm. I mean, very, very wealthy guy. And he had this new surround sound in the 70s. It was it's primitive now, of course. And we went over and he played Brick in the Wall Part 1, Part 2, but he played Part 2 first. And he kind of liked it because he had kids himself. They were older than my brother and I.
Oh, yeah,
and
we
I
know
could not. Yeah. And my mum was getting irritated because she didn't like the moral message from it.
Yeah.
But I didn't even care about that. But he was so into Pink Floyd and their music. Now, he was a farmer in his 50s, early 50s at that point. And he was my first introduction to Pink Floyd.
That's amazing. And
again, unbelievable.
The Wall.
Mm-hmm.
But the funny thing is that you were talking about, but the funny thing is that you were talking about before talking about Michael Jackson's The Wall also, because that was your first, and they both came out the same year.
Get enough. Yeah.
People don't realize it, but they both came out the same year.
Wow.
Yeah, so
wow.
No, Michael's was Off the Wall, and Pink Floyd's was The Wall.
The Wall. Yeah.
So I mean, in another interesting correlation and interesting tie, but had nothing to do with each other.
Mm-hmm.
It was my first.
It was my first because I was taping songs from Radio 1. So my mum bought me this cassette, and then I put it next to the radio. It was very, very primitive, and I'd label them, and I learned how to pirate
we did it all.
Tape on it and all the rest of it. But it was the first time I had been introduced to this massive. He'd spent hundreds of pounds on this in 1976, right?
Oh yeah.
And I'm just listening to this, and it was I've been listening to a tinny radio in my kitchen for years.
And you hear all the sonics in that one all of a sudden.
It was like I've been born again.
Oh my, yes.
And it was funny because Dennis, he liked my reaction because this is why he was listening to it. It was a very bonding moment. He wasn't a stepfather because they didn't marry, but they'd been together for 4 years. He was like a stepfather. And it was a beautiful moment. And then when he played Part 1, if you listen to it, it's actually about my father. You're just a snapshot in a family album.
Yes.
What have you done for me?
That's because his dad died.
It's not because his dad left like mine.
No. Here, the story, Roger's story is a little weird. His father was a complete pacifist, was totally against the war and everything at the time. And this was during the Second World War. But he had some friends that ended up talking him into the reasons that the war was going on, and so he kind of sort of ended up, I guess, he was in the military as it was, but it was more like a doctor or something like that. He was not a person that not on the front lines. Not on the front lines. He completely refused to be on the front lines. But after his friends talked him into it, he ended up on the front lines, and the very first day on the front lines, he was killed. And so therefore, that's why there's only the snapshot. It was a letter, and it came in the form of a parchment from the government.
Wow!
The letter that his father to his mother.
In a way, you and Roger Waters are alike because you didn't grow up with your dad, did you?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Roger and
My
I,
dad was
by,
my dad
and
came into my life when I was 15. Other than that, he was just a sort of jolly uncle that came in once every few weeks. So living without a father has a profound effect.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes. And
interesting
again,
parallel.
yeah,
It's unbelievable.
I've always been surrounded by women. You know, I mean, my mom,
Seven
my
sisters.
sister, but my sister that was really my niece.
Mm.
You know, the
It's
sister
funny
that
that
raised
because
me and all
if
that.
if
You
you
know,
if I look at my life, so my mother was a profound influence until I was ejected. Then I went to Becky's, and I went to Becky's mum's,
right,
and then I went to Brighton. That's when I emancipated myself and had my grandmother. But all the strong role models in my life, none of them have been men.
right. Me either.
Yeah,
They've
it's
all been women.
interesting. I know.
You know, and which is why I say it's interesting. I find myself with three women, and they're not just women, but the one owns a 400-person yacht that goes out cruising. She's a massive businesswoman. The lady that I
Mm.
work for, Celeste, Gustavo's mom, 78 years old, just going to retire coming up, has been doing what she's been doing for
Oh,
50
bless her
years.
heart.
You know,
Bless
I
her heart.
mean,
Ah, now that's a
this is,
trailblazer right there.
yeah, absolutely. My mom, my real mom, my real mom before she died was somebody that was somebody when she shouldn't have been somebody.
Ah,
Meaning she was a woman
broke the
in a
mold.
man's world
Ooh, yeah.
doing what I can't tell you exactly what she did. I
Hmm.
know that she was either the executive secretary or the executive of
Mm.
a company called Alaska Copper and Brass and a company called White Stag, which is a clothing company, and it's a very famous
Mm.
company in the West, in Oregon,
Right,
Washington states,
right.
probably West Canada, stuff like that.
Pacific Northwest,
Pacific
yeah.
Northwest, yes, yes. It's as big as like the North Face type brand that you see
Wow.
every now and then. Back
Yeah.
then, and she was way up there because I mean
Wow.
that's all I know. I mean, my
Yeah.
mom passed when I was like 8. My dad passed when I was 2. So, you know,
You're kind of an orphan.
oh, I am an orphan. There's no doubt about it. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
granted, I was raised by my sister, but it still wasn't my mom. You know.
No, exactly. Yeah, that's it's so interesting. So my grandmother, who'd married my grandfather 10 years before I was born, so to me she was my grandmother. She was Irish. She came from Northern Ireland, Omagh County, Tyrone, and so she was born in about 1935. So her mother was born at the turn of the century,
Right.
and her mother got divorced at the turn of the century and had
Jeez.
5 children to raise in Northern Ireland.
That's
And she had 5 children, and she sewed, she cooked, she grew herbs. And then a lady in the big manor house had taken pity, so she'd make her clothes. But she hustled to keep her 5 children because the father had gone
yeah,
in the turn of the century, Northern Ireland.
yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God. And that was why my grandmother just held this family together. She was so stoic, a bit of a martyr, and that was the problem. If she hadn't been so much of a martyr, she could have made more of her life. But nevertheless, she
She had
still
5
was
kids
this
to take care of.
strong. Well, that was her mother. Now, Bridget, my grandmother, Bridget, she had 4 children, and her husband, my grandfather, was just in a chair with anorexia, drinking whiskey all day. I mean,
Again, so out of the picture.
yeah, out of the picture, and it was all women. Becky's mother, and I've met very, very weak men in this life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
can't
mean,
say
you're
that
not
I
weak.
can't
You're
say.
lovely. You're not weak, but you know what I mean. You're few and far between.
Oh, believe me, I have my moments.
Oh well, don't we all, darling? Don't worry about that. That keeps you human.
Yeah,
You wouldn't
that's
be
true.
relatable otherwise.
Yeah, well, that's true too.
So funny. But the Pink Floyd, listening to that with Dennis, was my first introduction to this most beautiful production. And I was now transported into a world that I could never come back from because everything else sounded of poor quality at that
Oh,
point.
yeah, of course.
So then Dennis upgraded all my equipment. So now I had this radio and I could do this and I could do that. And he kind of got this little stepdaughter who was really into what he was listening to. It was a very nice stepfather moment.
And
And
that's
he came
awesome.
away. Yeah, it was really, really good. And Pink Floyd was his favorite.
Yeah, and that's truly awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the way that all worked. I mean, again, it was all part of the plan.
Yeah, I know. It's so easy looking back to trace it all, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't see it in front of you, but after you look back at it 20 years, 30 years later, it's wow,
Yeah, it's just like
that's
a
how I
puzzle.
got here.
It's how I got here. That's right. Well, that's beautiful. All right, Frank. Well, I'm going to get on with my day. It's been wonderful talking to you. It's been a delight as always.
Absolutely, same with you. I
Oh,
appreciate
that
talking with you
sounds
every
good.
time.
Yeah,
And
we'll
we're
do
going to
it
do
again.
now that, like I said, now that we've got this, we'll be doing a bunch
Yeah.
more phone calls, and everything we do will be able to be recorded so that we can cut it down and put it into any shows
Now
that we
listen
need.
listen to the caster once I'm off the phone and make sure because at the beginning I think you're going to hear frogs outside. But
Okay,
listen for that.
okay.
But as long as that's nice and crystal clear, because audio is really important.
Yes, and
But
you're
it
coming
might be
through clear as a bell through the headphones
yeah,
to
but
me.
we have to make sure that when we're putting that into an audio version, that is as clear as it is now.
Yes, but
But
it
you've got
should
your
be.
headsets on. It should be right because you
Yeah,
can hear it.
because I'm recording what I'm hearing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's great. I'm glad we got this technique. Oh, guess who just came on? No time. No time left for you. On to bigger things. That was sweet. All right, Frank. Lovely talking to you. We'll catch up soon.
Hugs and kisses to you, sweetie. You take
Yeah,
care,
loves
and I'll
and
talk
kisses
to you
to
soon.
you. Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
Take
bye.
care, honey. All
Oh,
right.
by the way,
Bye.
226, which happens to be my birthday.
Ah!